90s teens Megan Ward and Ralphie from A Christmas Story must venture into a digital world powered by the brain of a dead 10-year-old when a twisted video game occasionally abducts their friends, because that's totally how video games work. We watched Arcade today on...
Is this...
What, it's not like filler? Or...
No, I mean, like, the idea is that it's filler, but there's, like, an actual title for it that someone's come up with, and then I forgot what it was, but that's such a specific thing to search, like, no matter, like, what I looked up, I couldn't find it again. Like, I typed in, like, what you do before a podcast starts, and it got me nothing. It's all like, the moment before a podcast. I couldn't find it again. For some reason in my head, I want to say amuse-bouche, but I know that's, like, a food thing, so that's not... Joel liked that one.
I mean, you could roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not right at all. But, no.
God, amuse-bouche is a word, or is a phrase that I had just learned, like, this summer.
It's fun, right?
And I've heard it a lot. Like, for a word that I have never heard before, like, now it's in fashion now.
That's pretty standard to hear, like, a word or a phrase for the first time, and then...
It pops up everywhere.
Everyone decides to use it, and yeah, it's always like a case of, I'll start dropping that in everyday conversation, and then everyone starts doing it, and it just starts getting immediately obnoxious.
Well, my thinking is, like, what word-a-day calendar does everybody in the world but me have that everyone's using this sort of phrase?
Oh, man. It's not even a calendar anymore.
Why am I, like, the odd man out in this?
The word-a-day app.
Yeah, really.
That everyone gets. Yeah. But how often does amuse-bouche come up in everyday conversation?
Most of the time when I'm having dinner with my family. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when, like,
they're big,
make it,
they're
like,
big,
an appetizer.
they're big bouchers down there?
What'd you say about my family? What'd you say about my family?
What? I'm just saying that they're all just a big old group of bouche bags sitting around amusing themselves. And we won't get better than that. Welcome, however you wish to self-identify, to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. By Joel, I'm your host, Kaz Lesgard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
How's it going, everybody?
And,
What?
Do you feel that?
No.
Do you feel...
Is this a bit, or are you
no, there's like a chill in the air.
Oh, yes.
There's like an eerie sort of... spooky chill that just came over.
There sure is, Kaz. Why is that?
Do you feel that, guest who we haven't introduced yet? Do you feel that as well?
Boo.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, it's so unexpected right now. I don't know how's your spine?
It's tingling.
Is it tingling like mine?
Yeah, it's
chill. That's very well. Hold on. I gotta look something up. Here. Oh yes, it's late August. That explains a lot. It is late August, which can only mean over here on the podcast that it's time once again for The Fright Is This presents 2 months of Halloween! Woo! Yes. Of course, we over here start the Halloween season obnoxiously early, sort of counter-programming to all of the Christmas stuff that pops up in November 1st. And we just decided, you know what, if they're gonna force-feed us Christmas, we're gonna do the same thing for the best holiday.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is genuinely like a war on Christmas. And this is our resistance. Countering with Halloween.
War on Christmas 2. That's the subtitle to all of this. We of course had months to prepare for this, and of course we're very well prepared. You and I, Jameson,
so prepared.
Are of course both in full costume. A fact that we can absolutely collaborate, seeing as this is an audio medium. I of course am dressed in a black and orange sort of Mayor of Halloween outfit. You need to describe your costume because I don't quite get it. It's very clearly 2 different ideas that you've sort of mashed together, but I don't quite get what it is. Describe what your costume is, because I'm not getting it at all.
Oh, why do you put me on the fucking spot like this? You know I'm bad at it.
What do you mean I'm not talking about the spot? I'm not an improv thing. I'm just asking you to describe what it is you're wearing.
All right, I am wearing an all-white suit with a cape and a black pompadour, and I have elven ears, and I got a Legolas bow, because I am elf-ish Presley.
This is pretty good.
But
And also kind of a deep dive into the white suit and cape outfit that we were talking about last week on the pirate movie.
Yeah.
So it's more of an episode based costume, which I'm going to give you props for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jameson, what's our first spooky movie of the season, and who are we watching it with?
Today we'll be enjoying the filmed in 1991 but not released until 1993 movie Arcade.
Checks out.
And I will get into exactly why that is. But to help us through this spooky journey is a real piece of shit.
Starting off with some real negativity.
No
wonder he hasn't said a word until now.
Yeah, the fucking ginger bastard over here. No, this is a very good friend of mine and one of my absolute favorite people. We met years ago when we first worked at Microsoft together. He's a fellow YouTuber, the Red Menace himself, Mr. Curtis Roy.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
I'm excited to watch this. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I watched about 3 seconds of the trailer and immediately stopped because I knew I had to see this firsthand in person.
When I originally invited you onto the show, I wanted to watch bad movie that you had recommended to us many, many years ago. Because we used to have bad movie nights semi-regularly.
Of course.
And we would all pick and choose kind of movies. And Curtis came to us with this idea. What was it called? Alien Strand?
Oh man, yeah, it was something like that. Something about some alien cannabis strain that the aliens planted here on Earth. And essentially what happens is when you smoke the cannabis, you become a murderous psychopath and kill everybody around you.
Mm-hmm. But it was
that doesn't sound chill at all. That sounds like the opposite of what you want.
It was
a good indica to do.
It was so bad we banned you from suggesting more movies.
Which I just want to add is kind of funny because then you moved on to the Neil Breen movies, and I feel like I brought a lot more to the table than those movies did. I'm just saying.
He's definitely a breed apart, yes. But I wanted to
a Breen apart.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But I wanted to watch that Alien Cannabis movie just to see if it could have some redeeming qualities because we were really high when we watched it. And I don't remember a damn thing about it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it has any. I think there's a good reason it disappeared.
Yeah, there's a reason we banned you.
Was it called Alien Strain?
Strand, I think.
Alien Strand. I mean, they're not even trying with that. I can come up with a better weed-based alien. Plant 9 from outer space. See, and I wasn't even trying very hard.
I wonder how they pitched that movie. If I'm being, we're gonna have.
I bet I can narrow down what the first 5 seconds of the pitch is. Want to hear it? Here it is. Here it is. Dude, what if? There we go. See, that's all you really need.
Hey, did your accident settlement come in? How much money do you have? Can you fund this movie idea I've got?
I think I got it.
Perfect.
So what were some of the other terrible movies that you guys watched together when you were doing your terrible movie night? Any highlights?
Just any kind of Neil Breen stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely there's nothing else in my mind. It's just those. They're so bad. They have etched into my mind. That's what bad movie night means now, is where these guys are probably going to drag me over to Vancouver to watch some new Neil Breen movie. And I'm going to sit through the whole
new
thing.
Breen picture.
Yeah.
Drag you out. We watched the latest one on your fucking bachelor party, dude. At your place.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not perfect, okay?
Sounds like that was a perfect bachelor party.
Oh,
it was really fucking fun.
Yeah, it was not bad. And then I tried putting on my favorite movie afterwards, and you guys completely just left and were wandering through the house.
Well, now I need to know what your favorite movie
is. It was Forbidden Planet with Leslie Nielsen.
Oh, fantastic. That's a classic.
These guys didn't like it. They were not fans.
I think you need to be in the right sort of frame of mind. I'm assuming, pre-bachelor party, after having watched an entire one full-length movie, I'm assuming, stepping into, another movie that is a little older and you kind of have to pay attention to, probably wasn't, high on their priority list. So.
Yeah, we needed a bit of air after that Neil Breen movie.
Yeah.
I think we kind of went outside and just tried to take it all in and flush whatever that was out of our system.
Mm-hmm.
I've still never seen a Neil Breen movie, and I have to tell you, don't feel terribly compelled to. He's one of those people where it's even though I haven't seen it, I feel like I get it.
Well, if you were to compare to someone like Tommy Wiseau, who just made one movie, and it's very...
excuse me, he's made Best Fiends,
okay.
Volume 1 and 2.
All right, well...
He's done his television show, The Neighbors.
Yes, all right, fine.
He's done many things.
Fine, well, let me...
He has his hilarious cameo in the Hollywood movie The Disaster Artist. Yes, please explain.
All right, so Tommy Wiseau, I feel, just wants to be loved, and that's why he makes these movies, or at least The Room, where he is the nice guy who gets screwed over, and he just wants to be loved. Neil Breen has contempt for the human race. He is mad at corrupt politicians, bad bankers, people who aren't taking care of the planet, but it's like it's very unfocused. And the only thing that can solve it is he himself when he gets divine powers. And then there's like the bad acting, the bad production values.
I don't like it when a movie sermonizes me. Is the problem? Is I don't want to watch someone's manifesto. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like fun or enjoyable to me.
The worst part is that's all of his movies. He basically reprises the same role, does the same thing, and it's pretty much filmed in the same places too. So it's it's almost worth watching one of them just to understand how bad potentially a movie can be, and then from there I think you have everything you need for the rest of his movies.
All right, well, I'll smoke some of that Alien strain, and then maybe I'll sit down and I'll watch it. But there we go. Neil Breen, a director we will never cover on this podcast.
Good.
So talking about a show that we actually are going to cover on this podcast, tell us more about Arcade.
All right. Arcade is directed by American filmmaker Albert Pyan, who is known for like doing low-budget B-movies and direct-to-DVD action films. He's carved kind of a unique niche for himself as a director of low-budget, high-concept genre films starring actors who are past their prime.
Yep. He's in terms of like B-movie schlock, very impressive. Like he is a figure of some sort of Roger Corman-esque level. I mean, he's not like super deep into the producing side of it, but he's just produced like a ton of schlock. And, you know, in the terms of that world, he's kind of a king. Because he's directed so many of them. I've written down... I haven't gone into like the plots of any of these, but I've just written down my favorite titles of how do you say his last name again?
I pronounced it Pyan.
Pyan?
Yeah. P-Y-U-N.
Yeah.
Or Pyun.
We probably should have looked up. I think it might be Pyun.
Sure.
But however you pronounce it, we'll look up the actual pronunciation. We'll put it in here.
Hi, this is Albert Pyun.
Anyway, but yeah, these are some of my my favorite titles of his movies that he's directed. Radioactive Dreams, Vicious Lips, Alien from L.A., Brain Smasher, A Love Story, Max Havoc, Curse of the Dragon.
Max Havoc, holy shit.
And Bullet Face.
Yeah. He's also directed, like, the Nemesis series, Kickboxer 2 and 4, and the 1990 Captain America movie.
This is the thing that I want to point out, kind of, like, put on blast. So, like, for, like, a while, you know, Walt Disney and the MCU and everything, there was, like, a big push for getting, you know, diversity behind the camera. And they got there, like, eventually, you know, like, and they're kind of starting to put, you know, like, directors attached to projects that don't necessarily fit inside their demographic. You know, they got, like, Ryan Coogler to do Black Panther. They got a female director to do Captain Marvel. And it's all like, oh, it's, you know, it's also, like, neat and tidy and everything. And they've just recently announced Nia DaCosta, who's doing the Candyman remake, is going to be doing Captain Marvel too. So now, finally, just now, they're getting to the point now where it's like, all right, we have a filmmaker of color doing a movie that's not necessarily about like a character of that corresponding color. So Marvel is just getting there. I would just like to point out, however, Kevin Feige, that Canon Films back in 1990 hired a director of Asian American heritage to do Captain America back in 90. So get on it. You are way too late to that party.
So are you saying Canon Films is a better company than Disney?
I think based on that right there, Captain America is the only Albert Pyun movie that I have. Have you seen this Captain America movie?
No.
Whoo, boy, it sucks. Oh man, it's terrible. Captain America carjacks no less than 2 cars. There's like a move in that movie where he's in a car with somebody and he pretends to get car sick, and then he runs out of the car, and then the person driving the car gets down and says, "Hey, Captain America, are you all right?" And then he runs back to the car and steals the car and drives away and leaves them in the middle of nowhere. And both cases, they're both his friends. Like, they're not enemies, they're just people. He's just all like, "Fuck you!"
What a nice guy.
Yeah, Captain America is played by J.D. Salinger's son.
Okay.
In one of his only acting roles. I believe Red Skull is an Italian fascist instead of a Nazi, and he spends most of the movie with, like, terrible pancake makeup over the Red Skull, which isn't to say that when he is in the Red Skull, the makeup looks any better.
Right.
Yeah, Captain America, quite a train wreck.
Okay.
And he's directing this movie, so that bodes well.
Set us up real well there.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of superheroes, this movie is written by David S. Goyer, who wrote 2 very good Batman movies directed by Christopher Nolan, and who wrote the original Blade movie.
He wrote all 3 of them.
He wrote all 3. Okay.
And he directed the 3rd one.
Yeah.
Which is terrible film.
Yeah.
So, good screenwriter... maybe don't step behind the camera all that often.
There you go.
Yeah.
And let's meet the cast here. This movie is starring Megan Ward, who was in Encino Man, PCU, Joe's Apartment, and a lot of other high-concept comedies in the 90s.
Haven't seen any of those.
All right. Peter Billingsley, who was Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
John Delancey, who was Q from Star Trek The Next Generation. And Seth Green, who is from, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Austin Powers movies, Mass Effect, Family Guy, Robot Chicken. He's had a very successful...
He's a very successful career, yeah. Stephen King's It, the original one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, big guy, yep. There's one name that you didn't mention there, though. David S. Goyer wrote the screenplay for this, but the story for this is written by a gentleman named Charles Band. This is good. Okay, so Charles Band is another sort of like schlockmeister who has had a very long and storied career. He is the founder of Full Moon Entertainment, who makes such series as the Puppet Master series, Doll Man, Demonic Toys, Ginger Dead Man with Gary Busey.
Wow.
Sort of a companion movie, I think, to that Alien Strain movie. He directs a series called Evil Bong.
Yeah.
Maybe they should get together for the third movie.
Well, and his other big thing is he creates these intellectual properties and then he crosses over with them. So there has been Evil Bong versus Ginger Dead Man.
Fantastic.
Oh my God.
He's got a movie coming out later this year with the title Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King. So he's staying very relevant. The DVD cover is two bikini babes with masks on their face and a tiger underneath with also a mask on his face. So he's really, really hard-hitting commentary, Charles Band. But...
Curtis, if we ever revive like the bad movie nights, I hope we're like making a list.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. We could basically just take the page out of your journal here and we'd be ready to go.
All right, yeah, and that's all I got to say about Arcade.
All right, cool. Well, great. Well, the last episode ran absurdly long, so let's just jump right into this movie, and then when we come back, we'll tell you what happened down at the video arcade. Maybe something spooky?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like maybe.
Hopefully something. I'm just realizing right now this is our Halloween episode. This is a spooky.
Okay, so it is like just
horror elements happen here.
It's a scary movie. It's about like a haunted video arcade machine. So like we got myself who works in the games industry, Kirsty who had worked in the games industry. I play video games. Yeah, we got our cat ear headphones on. We got our Mario plushie and our 1-Up T-shirts. We're all gamed up. It's
clashing very badly with our previously established Halloween costumes.
Yeah,
but we have them.
Well,
we
changed.
Yeah, we changed in between. Yeah, we stopped the episode and then we edited this together so it was seamless.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
And there'll be one final costume change coming up later, but that's a surprise.
I just make sure there is a costume. You're not here in the buff.
There'll be a fourth costume change. All right, we'll see you after the movie.
Adam from the Bible. Sup, everyone. It's Jameson with today's charity spot. Now, I'm sure even the most casual observer has noticed that after months of suspension from the COVID-19 pandemic, most major sports have returned to play in a bubble playoff format. It's been a Herculean effort and a logistical nightmare to make a comeback like this happen, and much commendation is due to the professionalism and personal sacrifices of all involved within those bubbles to make this happen. Which is why it's even more amazing and commendable that scheduled play was suspended for 2 days this week in the wake of the tragic murder of Jacob Blake, and yet another example of gross abuse of police power. Following the example set by the NBA, a clear signal of unity, solidarity, and protest was accomplished at the NHL level by a player-driven initiative from members of the Hockey Diversity Alliance. This is an organization founded by BIPOC players Akeem Aliu, Joel Ward, Wayne Simmons, Anthony Duclair, Chris Stewart, Nazim Kadri, Matt Dumba, Trevor Daly, and Vancouver's own Evander Kane. They strive to create sustainable change on all levels of the game, to educate and encourage accountability from the league and its leaders, and to ensure the sport is accessible to anyone who loves the game. Please visit hockeydiversityalliance.org and find where you can make a donation to them today. They support development and equipment programs, anti-racism and unconscious bias education programs, social justice initiatives in racialized communities, and much, much more to make the culture of the game more inclusive. And for a more local charity support, though the postponement was the result of the actions by the HDA, reports from within the bubble were that the Vancouver Canucks, my favorite team, were by and large the driving force behind the ultimate position by all the players in the playoffs not to play for those 2 days. Hockey is by and large a sport dominated by Canadian, European, and let's face it, white athletes. So it's very nice to see a unification like this to show that this goes beyond sports. If you would like to support the local charity initiatives by the Canucks, please visit nhl.com/Canucks/community/Canucks For Kids/donate to find how your contributions can help support children's health and wellness and facilitate and encourage education in British Columbia. And also visit foundrybc.ca, which offers mental health and wellness resources throughout the province. Canucks fans are familiar with this organization, as former player Rick Rippon committed suicide in August of 2011, following complications with his clinical depression. The Canucks charity initiative mindcheck.ca was rerouted to foundrybc.ca. As a fan, I'm excited my favorite team has been doing so well in these return playoffs, but I'm even more proud of the examples they're setting off the ice. So please, visit hockeydiversityalliance.org, Canucks for Kids, and foundrybc.ca and find out how you can make a difference.
Well, we're back.
Yes, we're back.
We're back from watching an hour and 25-minute episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? That is what that was.
Yeah.
It wasn't that good.
No.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't quite. No, it wasn't quite the quality of Are You Afraid of the Dark? A show that actually is quite scary sometimes.
It's not bad.
Curtis, would you say this was a better choice watching this than Alien Strand?
I mean, here's the thing. It definitely piqued our interest. It had some really good buzzwords in there, right? It had VR. It had a whole bunch of artificial intelligence, so I think it was a good place to start off.
I thought you were going to say it peaked at about minute 10,
Well-
which case is correct.
Yeah, that was an absurd movie. And I said, like, a lot of the, like, the really shitty movies that we watch here have, like, really absurd premises. This one was really no different. But even from, like an educated perspective working in the games industry, this was an absolutely absurd premise.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about this. I mean, you did mention it in the intro that, yes, both of you are in the video game developing world. Of course, longtime listeners of the show will know that is what Jameson does. But yeah, how accurate was that to the concept of developing a video game?
Oh,
speak to me in layman's terms.
Oh, it's 100% accurate.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. There's always one programmer, no designers.
Yeah, you're all wearing lab coats.
That's right.
You often get human brains developed into the code of the video games.
Oh, absolutely.
Brains from wayward children with
Hey,
tragic backstories.
It's not unethical, okay? He said that they clearly wanted to donate the brain cells.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, the kids seemed happy
there
enough
was probably a waiver that they signed. It was fine.
to
Yeah.
become an evil video game entity. Very confused. That very clearly was David Goyer coming up with, or Charles Band, or whoever came up with the story of this, coming up with a high concept idea for a movie, and then they put it into production, and about halfway through they realized, oh, we don't have nearly enough of the budget to do this idea at all. So they come up with like this idea. They're like, what if you went inside a video game and it was evil, but you were inside the video game? And it's like, great, we have the budget for maybe 10 minutes of that. And it's the rest of the movie is jumping through hoops to try and not show that. I've never seen a movie go out of its way to not show its basic concept more than arcade.
Yeah. And did they just actively refuse to consult anyone on, like, how games are developed?
Well, 1991, what was the video game landscape like in 1991? What were the big systems that were out?
I think the NES was still around, because I don't think the Super Nintendo came out until, like,
Let's look that up.
93.
Keep talking.
Yeah, and Sega was kind of, they were moving in on the industry as well as Atari was kind of dying out. But the thing is, if you look at the entire concept of that, like even if you kind of transplanted your brain back into the early 90s and thought video game development, it was probably even farther from the truth of what they had in this movie. Like the guy had his own office with a lab coat and his own assistant.
Yeah.
And the lead programmer, also the only programmer and designer, was also apparently the only tester as well.
Yeah.
This was a video game company where it was 3 people building all. It really didn't Vertigo/Tronics. Not Vertigotronics. One word that might make sense as a video game development company. No, it is Vertigo/ Tronics.
It seemed like a major conglomerate that had like a new video game division that they didn't really know what to do with.
Totally. It seemed like they made lots of other things, and then like this VR video game experience was like a new development that they were getting into. So they're like, I don't know, like what's a good example? Like TDK. Like that's a company that makes lots of other things, but also occasionally made video games. I don't think that existed anymore, so that's the equivalent of that. Yeah,
like
Super Nintendo.
Sony would be a good example for it, but
that's probably that's a better example.
Yeah. So the
that's really stupid. That reminds me of the dumbest question that anyone has ever asked me in my life, and I'll never forget this. My friend Andrew Blum asked me this when we were in high school, just like stone-faced, like no irony whatsoever. He turned to me one day and said, hey, does Panasonic make the Sony PlayStation? And that's something that I've never forgotten in my entire life. And that was I came very close to having a very dumb moment like that myself. Super Nintendo came out in 1991.
Okay.
So right as this movie was in development. So it wouldn't have been out when they were making this, but maybe screenshots.
Maybe more to the point, like the arcade scene was still very big.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to get this out of the way first and foremost. I cannot get over the fact that the name of the evil video game that is at the center of this is called Arcade. That's the name of the video game. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of like going up to someone and say like, oh, well, what book are you reading? Oh, it's a new book I just got. It's called Novel. That's so like like they go to the video arcade, which is called Dante's Inferno, and they have to take as many steps as possible not to refer to the place as arcade. No, the video game itself is called Arcade. You couldn't come up with anything else other than that.
Well, maybe it was the lead programmer who chose the name for the game, so who knows?
He seemed like a bit of a scatterbrain and like really did not plan out like even the most basic like what happens if the eject button doesn't work? You know, he didn't at one point wonder about that himself and come up with a solution.
Well, he might have had another scroll of paper that told you how the escape button worked, or was supposed to work.
Yeah. So all of his documentation is on scrolls.
Oh my God! Like we'll get to that, but very rarely do you have a scene in a movie where the character explains the evil thing that's happening at the center of the story, and then by the end of it, you're left with more questions. Like I was twice as confused when we got to that point where the programmer was like, here's the deal behind Arcade, and by the end of it I'm all like, that just raises further questions.
I'm gonna say like that entire sequence where he's breaking down like the development of Arcade and like explaining like how it works and what to do to stop it. Hands down the funniest scene in the movie for me.
Yeah, it was all buzzwords. It was fantastic. You could tell too, back then, this is kind of modern internet where everybody's on forums. You could tell, I imagine the information coming out about game development wasn't all over the place. So they're probably thinking our audience won't know any better. We'll just put the development on these scrolls and we'll lay it all out on this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's when they're in the video, when they're in Dante's Inferno and Peter Billingsley is talking to John Delancey, who I thought was going to be in the movie way more, but they kind of completely give up on John Delancey about midway through this movie. He disappears and he never comes back. But like Peter Billingsley is kind of being like a little like know-it-all, like little nerd kid, is all like, oh, I heard Arcade went through like a rough development patch.
Never-ending design problems. That's what I heard.
How?
Yeah.
How did you find this out in 1989?
Probably from a friend. Because, this seems like a company where, like, they will just take meetings from anyone who comes in off the street who wants to talk to the devs and ask them, like, pertinent questions about, like, oh, how does the game work? How do you beat it?
Well, what amazing luck that the development company that made Arcade happens to be located in the town where all of this stuff is happening at the same time. But you were mentioning earlier that this movie sat on the shelf for several years. It's a fun concept, sat on the shelf, when you're talking about straight-to VHS movies. Because it sat on the shelf, and then finally it got released to sit on the shelf.
Yeah.
Like that's always where it was meant to be. It was sitting on the shelf. But what was the development of Arcade? What were the problems that this movie had?
So the only one that came up for me was so it was originally meant to be released in 91. But when the Disney company noted a similarity to the sky cycles, to the light cycles from Tron in an early trailer and promo images, the film was like kind of tied up in arbitration for years until like the production just completely decided to redo all the CGI.
Yeah, and if you go on IMDb, there are like a ton of still images from this that are not in the movie that we just watched. Like, scroll through those. Like, there's a whole bunch of like graphics and like an entire monster design that is prominently in several of those photos that just, it was not in this movie.
Yeah.
But this is a very short movie, and you can absolutely tell that it has been hacked to pieces, particularly when we get to the inside the game system, because boy, that just zooms by at a steady clip, and you can tell that there was meant to be so much more to this than ended up in the final movie.
You don't always wake up covered in war wounds all the time? I mean, I do.
I mean, yeah.
But that's unrelated.
Yeah.
Oh, is that my rib hanging out? Ah, it must be Thursday.
You get used to it after a while, you know. So all those sleep fights that you get into.
So should we break down the plot of this?
That's what we do.
All right. So the movie stars a young woman named Alex, whose mother committed suicide, and she's a real bummer about it.
Yeah.
Turns
really
out,
just depressing all of her friends. She's like constantly bringing up your dead mom. I mean, even the therapist at the beginning of the movie.
It's been a year.
It's been really, you should move on.
Get over
because,
it.
Yeah.
Buck up. Yeah, so like her only real solace is like hanging out with all her friends who like really kind of don't seem to like each other.
She didn't appear to get any amount of solace from that. She just has her standard group of mismatched
hoodlums,
loners.
The most 90s fucking kids imaginable.
Yeah, which of course, as we've said before, it includes a pre-fame Seth Green and a after-fame Peter Billingsley, who of course started young as a child star. Let's talk about Peter Billingsley, because Peter Billingsley has carved out kind of a very interesting career. Because I
have no idea.
Well, he was that. You actually probably have more of an idea than you realize, because he started off in A Christmas Story. And then they tried to find other projects to do with him. And then, like the whole Kid Star thing didn't work out for him. And he kind of disappeared for a good long while. And then he doesn't necessarily have like a career, but he's still doing stuff. And that is in large part due to his friendship with one Jon Favreau. He pops up in a lot of Jon Favreau's projects. He's in Elf and Elf. And more prominently, he has a small little role in Iron Man. Do you remember when Jeff Bridges is yelling at the dude and he's like,
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Oh, that was
scrap. That's Peter Billingsley in that. He's the guy who says,
I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
And they brought that character back for the most recent Spider-Man movie. He's part of Mysterio's evil plan.
Okay.
So yeah, Peter Billingsley shows up in that, and he shows up in a lot of other Jon Favreau related stuff, and he's actually moved over into directing. I directed a couple of Favreau related projects. He directed Couples Retreat, which is a terrible comedy that Favreau and Vince Vaughn were in. And then the last movie he directed is this movie called Term Life, which is another Favreau-Vaughn joint that I have never heard of, but may be a movie we want to cover.
So don't go into too much detail on it. We'll get around.
You want to hear like the amazing supporting cast that this movie has?
Kind of not really. Let's get through.
All right, we get back into this. Wait, it's based on a graphic novel. Okay, we may have to do Term Life at some point, but that's really fascinating. But yeah, Peter Billingsley still doing shit.
Okay, that was your Peter Billingsley update, everybody.
Yeah, just so everyone knows,
we're caught up.
We can all relax now.
Yeah. So news comes down the wire that there's a hot new arcade game called Arcade debuting at the arcade.
Still can't fucking get over that.
Yeah, the arcade.
You guys want to go to the movies later? Yeah, we want to see film. That's like, I was talking to like my friend the other day. We were talking about Samara Weaving, and someone was saying like, "Oh, she's great in Hollywood," and I'm like, "Oh, okay," and like, he kept saying that. And then,
the show Hollywood.
Yeah, there's a show called Hollywood. It's just like, that's confusing. Stop doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they go to Dante's Inferno, the arcade, and which is just like this dingy basement, like
I mean, you think that's gonna be foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Calling something Dante's Inferno, and you would assume like, oh, it's a game from hell.
Yeah.
Satan is involved. Nope, red herring.
Yeah.
Not involved.
But they had to swap the names, right? Because they already named the game the arcade, so they couldn't call the arcade the arcade.
Yeah.
Or they couldn't call like the actual game Dante's Inferno, which is funny. Because there are stages and levels to that, like much like there is in the Dante's Inferno story. Yeah.
Wow. Now that you say that is
they should have just swapped the fucking
so
titles.
stupid.
There's got to be legal reasons for that.
There's already a Dante's Inferno game, and it wasn't. The arcade is debuted there from Q from Star Trek. He's sort of like the head marketing guy there who wants people to try out arcade.
What if this is just like a really elaborate Q hologram? By the end of it, Picard is going to like take off the VR visor. It's all like, well, that was
stupid.
That was done. Let's not talk about this. This will be one of those episodes that we air during the afternoon. No one will. It's not canon.
Yeah. So Peter Billingsley volunteers to be the first player of arcade, which is, just like a sit-in cabinet where you got to put in a quarter, and it sucks you completely into this green screened world.
And look, I get that in 1991 they didn't know what virtual reality was inevitably going to look like, but they didn't even really try. Like they honestly did. Like it seems like they have a visor on over their faces, but it's inconsistent. Like some of the times they have it on, and other times it seems like they don't really need it. They have, what are they called? Cyber gloves that don't seem to do much.
No.
And we get to see a little bit of the first level of arcade. God, we spent a lot of time on this first level.
It's the hardest level in the game. Nobody can fucking get past the corridors of doom.
The corridors of doom.
Curtis, could you describe the corridors of doom for us, please?
It's kind of funny. Like, if I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself, but if you guys ever spent time as a kid watching those Windows 95 screensavers, where it just went through like the corridors of doom hallways, and if you had a really fast computer, you push a turbo button and you could get close to 30 FPS in there. It was just like that, but it was really bizarre too, because you saw like in the arcade cabinet, right? So they put on their dirt biking gloves and their ski goggles, and they're kind of controlling the skateboard, but then when they were using a different version, they had an Atari joystick.
Well, that's for the home version of it.
Yeah, but they still had body presence somehow with the joystick.
I get this is the early... We're a little spoilt in terms of video games these days because we are living in the future, and we do in fact have virtual reality now. So I get that was technology that didn't exist when this movie came out, but like they didn't even try. I mean, like, if the first level is a skateboarding level and you're building an entire cabinet for the player to step in, why not have, like there are those...
Like a little treadmill or something.
Yeah, there are those video games where it's like a skiing video game or a skateboarding video game, and they actually have... Why not have a skateboarding controller that pops out at the bottom, and people can go like radical, and they can like do tricks.
But for the most part, it's just like this on rails hallway where like you don't even really need to dodge the spikes, and you just do that until fucking Pac-Man shows up to eat you.
Like, not even joking. It's a big yellow circle that we think is the Screamer, because they keep saying that there's like an enemy called the Screamer, and sometimes we just see a big yellow ball. Sometimes we see a skull with wings. Sometimes we flat out see like a pterodactyl skeleton that is chasing them. So it seems like there is one enemy in all of arcade.
Yeah. It was a very low-budget dragon, like an Ender Dragon from Minecraft.
It's very low-budget everything.
But I can almost forgive the lack of a skateboard controller, because remember, the whole principle was supposed to be that the AI can change the levels. No, he didn't. Apparently he forgot he could do that.
He leans very heavily on, there are several levels and the computer can change the game at any point. He just chooses not to.
Yeah, it's a thinking computer, and it learns from you, and like you can't anticipate
It's a thinking computer. It is very unimaginative.
So everyone's blown away by arcade, and John Delancey gives away the home version.
I love John Delancey's introduction, where they're like talking shit about like the video game arcade, and then from like the next room, arcade actually answers.
Who gives a fuck about arcade anyway? Try saying that to my face.
And then it cuts over to John Delancey. He just goes,
"Ooh, pretty scary."
Well, that sets the tone for the entire movie.
I just love that, the actual arcade cabinet is this massive floor-to-ceiling thing, and, the home version is just, a fucking, ski goggles. It should be way more powerful, but it's just, a thing you gotta plug into your TV.
I mean, how does this work? If it's an evil video game program, it gives, this would make perfect sense in, a movie today, because you can just say, well, it's on the cloud or whatever, or it's on, the mainframe. But it's an evil entity that exists in this arcade cabinet, but also individually in all of the home console versions of arcade.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I think the only scene in the movie that they didn't hold for about 10 seconds too long
That's a big problem with this movie, too.
Was the one where they showed the power lines afterwards. I was getting the impression that it moves through the lines.
Was that the foreshadow? You read into that a lot more than I did.
Probably, because like I said, it's the only scene they didn't stick on, so maybe I definitely looked into that too far. But I kind of was getting the feeling that that's how it moved.
I think, how could you not? I mean, the camera just, lingered on those power lines for way too long. Our film fan brains teach us that, remember this is important. But really, it could have just been a director fuck-up.
For a movie that's barely an hour and a half, the scenes certainly seem to end
way too late.
Way too late. He's really given it a real, Werner Herzog pause.
Yeah.
Where he asks someone a question, they answer, and then the camera stays on them for at least 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Just because he's so interested in what people's unscripted idea is.
Yeah. Because characters will have a conversation, and then, the script will end. They'll have nothing left to say. They're just looking at each other, and I can just tell that the director was like, and cut.
So everyone gets, not everyone, but I guess Alex and her friends get the home console version of arcade. I'll just tell you one thing. If I was in that arcade, if I was in the arcade that had arcade, God, see, this is why it's confusing. If I was in Dante's Inferno, I wouldn't even be looking at arcade, because there's one shot where we see that there is a video game called Killer Cow. And that, I'll just tell you right now, that is where I would be. I would be parked right in front of Killer Cow. There's no reason to go anywhere else.
That's where your quarters go, for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're putting your quarters in a Killer Death AI machine or Killer Cow, there's no comparison.
I mean, that's clearly the spin-off movie. You start playing Killer Cow, and then you get home, and there's just a cow in your living room, and you're like, oh, God!
So Alex's boyfriend, Greg, goes to play arcade, and he is sucked into the game, I guess.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing, is this only happens a couple of times, but arcade will suck you into it and trap you inside the game, but it only seems to do so when no one else is looking. Because they go to visit their other friend later on in the game, and she's
kind of in a catatonic state.
She's in a catatonic state. She's seeing angels everywhere and whatnot, and I'm like, well, okay. And then she kind of passes out after being possessed by arcade, and arcade is speaking through her. And so I started writing down as wait, so does arcade trap people inside of it, or does it just kill them? And from the time it took me to write that down to look back up, she had gone, because her other two friends had to literally turn their backs to her and then turn back for her to disappear. So it's it only happens when no one's looking at it.
Yeah, that's when he's making his move.
Because they used up all the budget. They couldn't have any getting sucked into the video game graphic. Their budget was just stretched too thin.
Yeah.
Just wasn't happening for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have literally just wires on dirt bike gloves, so that kind of makes sense when I think about it.
So Alex is really worried for her boyfriend. She's calling his house, but it's past midnight and the mom's not worried that he's not home yet.
Yeah. Mom of the year. Well, because she goes home and she starts playing her version of arcade, and it's oh, I got your boyfriend in here, Alex. Oh, and he calls her a bitch a couple of times.
Yeah.
I saw you watching me. I heard you are mine. It wants to play just like your boyfriend did.
Where's Greg?
He's right here, bitch.
That's arcade's one move. And then, she's only playing the game for a few minutes, and then when she takes the console off, it is hours later. An interesting idea that is not explored.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's not how that happened in the arcade version.
No.
Everyone saw him go into the game in real time.
And you only got 30 seconds before the screamer comes and kill you anyway. So I don't understand how she was sitting there for hours when she has 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a very cheap game, actually.
It is a game that is very, again, it wastes no time. It's a very conservative game. It wants to be over and done with as soon as possible. Like, we see them go into, like, this corridor of doom.
Hardest level in the game.
Hardest level
no one can get past.
It's certainly you know what, I've played old school NES games where that literally was the case, where the first level was the hardest one, and then once you get past it, I'm like, oh, this is, I can do this now. This is so weird.
Absolutely.
So that's on brand.
Steep curve, this game.
Yeah. But
yeah, so like she takes off the console, but like the game will not turn off. Like it's talking to her in the room. She goes to unplug it, but she just can't muster the strength to unplug the outlet.
Yeah,
it's really in there.
Yeah, it's in there. So she goes to her friend Nick's house, who's playing the game, and won't believe her that Nick's trapped in the game. Like you're being paranoid because you're loony because your mom died.
Yeah. Great friend. Yeah. Clearly enjoys her company. And this is what's so like weirdly inconsistent about this, because the plot of this movie is teenage girl. There's this evil video game that's a virtual reality game, and all of her friends get trapped in the game, and she obviously has to go in and rescue all of them. You would think that would be the plot. It kind of is, but also it's not remotely interested in any of her friends as characters. Like, if this idea were fleshed out a little bit more, and it were playing on kind of more of like a Freddy Krueger pastiche, we would get to know her group of friends a little bit more, and they would all have maybe one identifiable characteristic that's
used in the game.
Like, that the game might exploit.
Yeah, there's the music guy, and he has like maybe sound powers.
Yeah.
There's the jock, and he's like really strong, or like.
But this movie is so cheap and it's so short, we never get to see any of the characters. Like, the next day, she's like, "Oh, my boyfriend has disappeared," and then she tries to phone all of her other friends. They go to the one friend's house and they watch her get sucked into arcade and taken over, and then they just kind of accept that that's what's happened to everyone else. We're not going to go check on anyone else. I mean, and in point and fact, there's a scene where she goes to school and all of her friends aren't there. The only friends who are there are Peter Billingsley and Seth Green, who I believe even has a line of dialogue saying like his TV wasn't working.
Did you play arcade last night?
No, actually, as I was just telling Nick, my TV was busted.
But then later on, when they go into the game...
You shouldn't need it because it's fucking VR.
Yeah, exactly. But then later on, when she's playing the game and she's trapped in the game, Seth Green shows up as a character. So
he fixed it.
I guess he went home and... this movie expects us to do a lot of the mental thinking for ourselves.
Well, to be fair, the one character wasn't even playing it in the take-home kit that they gave him. He was somehow playing that through his own computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was playing on... Yeah, some of them were playing them on TVs. Peter Billingsley is just playing it on his computer. And also, if the plot of the movie is that all of her friends get trapped inside of this game, why doesn't Peter Billingsley get trapped inside of the game?
Because people were watching? I don't know.
Because he's playing, like, with everyone else, and Arcade seems to be like, haha, bitch, I'm going to trap all of your friends inside me, but I'm going to leave one of them out for some reason, because he's... I guess the most famous out of all of you, so we need to keep him around for a little bit longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
He was holding that magical rectangular square thing that...
what do they keep calling it? Not the pixel, but like...
Pentagram or something?
Yeah. There's no reason, because they just keep like, oh, look at this. It's like a rotating square. And it's like, don't spend too much time looking at it. But it amounts to nothing. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't trap them or anything.
You would think it's something important to the game, but it's not. It's just like some fractal thing.
Well,
isn't that fractal, that's what they were calling it,
So isn't that how he got out of the world, though? Because he was the only one who was able to somehow come out and watch it unfold.
I thought that was the programmer.
That was the programmer that showed up and he hit the escape button.
So that had nothing to
do
with anything.
Nothing.
I think they were just really proud of that graphic for some reason.
I mean, it was...
They shouldn't have been. No. It looked like garbage.
Oh, that's cool as hell. We gotta put that in the game.
We gotta really make this a giant plot point. We gotta do this.
So you could tell they cut a lot out, too. So I'm sure eventually had a reason to be there.
Yeah, it was just lost on the editing room floor. So they go to the company that made the game,
Vertigotronics,
to talk to the one programmer who worked on this fucking game, who seemed to have like to do everything and to like keep all his documentation like on paper, which I guess is era appropriate. But I'm telling you right now, in this day and age, that would be a really shitty company to do a practice like that.
They essentially go to him to just say like, hey, something like weird and evil is going on with Arcade, and like not only does he believe them immediately, like it seems like he's well aware of the fact that
that's how I built the game.
That's how I built the game. I built, like I did like the standard development thing, and I had like this little boy's brain that I somehow put into the code somehow.
It was ethical. It was ethical.
Yeah. Like,
His
sir,
mom
you're a
signed off on
murderer.
it.
Do you know that? Like, you should be arrested.
Yeah, and then he, I guess, gives them essentially like a player's guide in
Yeah.
the form of a scroll that he unfolds.
That has like a skull with bat
It's
wings.
got little bat wing skulls at the top, so you know it's a spooky movie.
Look, I don't know about you, but when I develop the future, I always leave my plans on ancient scrolls afterwards. That's how I operate.
At this point in time, I did write down, is this a prequel to Ready Player One? Because it seems like it's following a lot of the same beats. It is. It's like they go on a quest to find keys to enter the door. I love how he's like describing.
Yeah.
It's like
You get through this level and there's a doorway and
You see, there's a door, and you have to find a key to the door. And it's all like, no. Look, we get how video games work. We understand the concept of find key, enter door. At this point in time, we're past the Atari age. We get that. That is, anyone who's played a video game before understands that. We're more concerned with the fact that the video game seems to be killing people and calling me a bitch.
you didn't find this out in like the fucking development process. Why did you release this goddamn game?
Well, and they couldn't beat the first level, and then they're just kind of standing there, and Alex says, oh, look, a doorway with a giant key hanging on it. Like, if they didn't go talk to the lead programmer, would they, like, just walk in there, see the one doorway with a giant key on it, and think, well, that can't be the way out?
Yeah.
I'm stumped. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, but like they did get further, it appears, than anyone else did in the game. So yeah, like Alex and Nick, determined that we got to go into the game. We got to go right to where this all started, and like where like all.
We got to go back to the source. We got to go back to where this all started. So they leave the development company and go back to Dante's Inferno.
Like we're
flawless logic.
All the servers would be at the company, but no, like the entire game, like its focal point.
You don't know that for a fact. They have scrolls with their design documentation.
They probably, as soon as he unfurled the first scroll, they were both like, "This is a dead end. We gotta get."
Oh, you're crazy.
We're in the wrong place.
But now that I'm thinking about it, like, why do they even have to go back to Dante's Inferno to get?
Because that's where it all started, Jameson.
But no, where it's the game world, and they all have home versions of the game. They could have gone to any one of them.
No, they got to go to the source. They got to go to the worst lit room in this entire build. We got to go to a place where we can barely see what's happening.
Yeah,
that's
and
what we got to do.
It's not real if you're not putting in quarters.
That's
right. If you're not throwing quarters in there, the home console that didn't require quarters, so you're not going to get anywhere there.
You have to pay a piece of your soul.
Yeah, I love
25 cents worth.
I love it when they
or
broke
the token equivalent.
I love it when they broke into the arcade and they're like, "If the game's not coming on, like, what do we do? Like, it should have just come on automatically." And she goes, "You have to put a quarter in to play just what it wants you to do." Or
nothing to do with the fact that we are in an arcade after hours where everything is turned off. Yeah, presumably
the game it wants you to put money into it. Like, yeah, of fucking course it does. Like,
it's not like fucking Jackie's dad from that 70s show is still hanging out like in the back office, just ready to turn things on.
Bob's the owner of Dante's Inferno, and apparently he's just allowed to hit his.
He just goes around slapping kids all the time. He like slaps a bully who's like bullying Seth Green, and then like after he leaves, he turns around and he manhandles Seth Green a little bit more.
The 90s were a different time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Why do kids keep going to this arcade? There's no windows.
Someone left a smoke machine on, apparently, or just a bowl of dry ice in the next room, because it is rank.
Yeah. So Nick and Alex, they get into the cabinet, which up until this point, like, arcade is a single-player game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
apparently they're both able to fit in the cabinet and share, like, the VR goggles or whatever.
We've established in this world that you put VR goggles on and you have cyber gloves.
Yeah.
But for some reason, when they get into the cabinet, arcade's just like, Alex, Nick, welcome to my nightmare. And it's just, I'll put both of you in here. And look, it's an evil little boy ghost game. So, look, I'm willing to suspend a certain amount of belief, but no, if you're establishing that you are playing a tangible video game system, you need to establish that there is a two-player option.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this doesn't make sense.
And if the whole thing is it wants to get your quarters, do you really think it would want two people getting in on one quarter?
Yeah.
Think about it. That makes no sense.
Yeah. We got to play the game by its own rules. Also, we're going to break this one rule and it'll just allow it.
Everyone knows if you're playing multiplayer in an arcade, you need to insert like multiple. That's at least $1.
Player 2. Like, come on.
That's at least $1.
Yeah. So they get into the game and just...
You know what? This movie's not very realistic.
Go figure.
That's my problem with it.
So they go on a fucking speed run.
So this should be the entire movie, but it's so obvious that they just didn't have budget to realize this. So they keep saying like there are 7 levels to arcade. You have to go through all of these rooms. So we get to like the corridor of terror, which we've spent a lot of time on, and then they get past that, and then they
which seems really easy. Just go through the door. Yeah. Nobody else thought of that already.
They just unlock the door, and then they go to like this virtual reality pyramid world.
Oh, that level 2, that is some vaporwave shit.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then they see one of their unnamed friends, or maybe he had a name. But...
No, that was the boyfriend, I thought.
No, the boyfriend was already gone. That was another guy who was sucked in.
Yeah, this is the problem, is none of these friend characters are remotely established. We only remember the ones who went on to have a career.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing, like, you can't say anything about Seth Green's character. The only reason he sticks out in your memory is because it's Seth Green. Otherwise, we don't know anything about that guy. But yeah, she sees one of her friends drowning in a pool of strawberry quick.
In a fucking construction yard or something.
In a mud puddle.
In a red mud puddle.
So she runs over. He's holding one of the keys. She tries to save him. He drowns, but she gets the key. Peter Billingsley is
fixated on a fractal.
Fixated on a fractal. Indeed. What a sentence. And then Meta Ridley comes out of nowhere. Screeching and coming down. And
he's saved because the programmer...
He's about to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the programmer gets him out of the game through some kind of dev hack or whatever.
I mean, like... It feels like the rule of this should be the classic stay alive rule here, is if you die in the video game, you die for real. It seems like if you die in the video game, you just continue to be trapped in the video game. Because her one friend drowns, but then spoiler alert, they beat the video game and all the kids are released. I don't think there's a single death in this horror movie that we watched.
Yeah,
because it's an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No, the mom.
Where her mom
dies.
Yes. Sorry, it opens with a suicide. You're right. Yeah.
Well, and it was bizarre too because the kid was screaming as if he was drowning in the puddle. Yet the solution was, once she got the key from the kid drowning in said puddle, was to jump in the puddle.
Yeah.
That's the exit to level 2.
So, like, was he screaming because he's like, I'm winning, and he's falling through the hole with the key? Like,
no!
I don't understand. I don't get it. And keep in mind, at this point, she looked, so Alex, the character at that point who was trying to get the key, she looked fine. She had no wounds.
God, we gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
She progressively gets more and more battle damage from, like, unseen injuries.
Like, I think I seen her lung actually moving underneath her rib at one point.
And it's inconsistent from scene to scene. This is the first level where that happens. So they escape from Pac-Man. She doesn't, like, come across any sort of enemy whatsoever. Like,
no fights.
Nothing has happened to her at this point. But when she runs over and tries to get Buddy out of, like, the drowning pool or whatever.
She's got a bloody face.
She's got blood all over her face. And it's like, what? Where did that come from? And and then after she jumps through the pool, she comes out and she's got, gashes. They're just, like, bleeding.
Yeah.
And from level to level, the blood on her face changes. Sometimes there's a little of it. Sometimes there's a ton.
Sometimes it's a nosebleed.
Yeah, but nothing has happened to her. She hasn't gone through any sort of fight or anything. She's just covered in wounds.
Yeah. Well, you know what like throughout the movie, like people keep saying like, "Oh, Alex won't want to play arcade. She's not good at games." Is this why she just like manages to get herself hurt without even trying?
Yeah, and
Just grabbing a key.
Just grabbing a key. Ow!
God forbid there be a single scene where we see for the fact that Alex is bad at playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obviously just like an accepted thing because it's the 90s and girls don't play video games. Girls playing video games is a very recent thing that that only happened in like 2010?
Yeah.
Or is when girls started playing video games.
Yeah, she's
so
the first gamer girl.
She's the very first video game girl.
That
yes.
said, though, like once you get past fucking level 1, the game's a goddamn breeze. So she cruises on to like level 3, which is just answering a riddle.
Okay, so the setup for this is she goes through like the puddle of Strawberry Quick, and she goes there, and then there's two hooded figures
two ferrymen
at the end of a deck, and offhandedly I very jokingly said like, oh, one of us tells the truth and the other one tells a lie.
Guess what happens?
You may ask one of us a question. One tells the truth, the other lies. Who you ask remains your discretion. But if the answer's wrong, the questioner dies.
Fuck you, David S. Goyer! That old chestnut.
You almost recited their line perfectly.
Because it's such a cliche, I didn't think they were actually going to do it.
It was so fantastic.
They're not lazy enough to do that. They are lazy enough to do that.
It's that old chestnut. But yeah, and the two hooded figures are her friends. It's Seth Green and the other girl. And then it's all like, oh, one of us. Yeah, it's literally one of us tells the truth and the other one only lies. And it's like, okay, well then you're gonna pick the one who lies because I forget how that works.
Yeah,
out,
I wanted to ask you guys if you know.
That's in everything, right?
Yeah, well, I forget even like where it started, but like what you're supposed to do is like you ask like what would the other one say or something like that. There's a worker. There's like a.
That's from Labyrinth, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Or it probably predates Labyrinth.
Yeah, like which one of you two would
it's like
I assume
a Lewis Carroll poem or some bullshit like that?
Something like that. But you ask them like what would the other guy say if I asked him if you're the liar or something like that? Yeah, I think that's...
Okay, but so here's like the so like level 2 is like the construction yard where her friend is drowning.
Yep.
And then this is the series of events. She falls through the puddle. This was level 2. Falls through the puddle, goes to the ferryman, guesses the right answer, goes on a little boat. All of a sudden, this little kid avatar falls from the sky. Enter new player, falls into the water. She fishes him out. They get to
that's
the
level
end
3.
No, that's level 5. They
right.
jump 2 levels. So it's like, okay, so level 3 was just the quiz.
Yeah.
And level 4 was the boat ride?
Well, do you remember, so the lead programmer was saying you're going to have to get that extra life because the second half of the game was really hard, which we found out was totally inaccurate. Turns out level 1 is by far the hardest level. But then that was level 4 was just her acquiring that extra life. Like she did nothing.
Literally
for it.
an extra person.
Yeah.
How does she get that again? Does she because she guessed the riddle?
No, by saving the kid. So as soon as they saved, as they showed like his little avatar is like saving him, and they're like, oh, you got an extra life.
Okay, but that raises several questions, which we'll get to. We're not quite there yet.
Eventually it does answer, but like in that moment we were so confused. Like, who's this fucking kid? How did he skip the first 2 levels? Like, is he just like doing like hacks to get into this far into the game?
They keep saying arcade has a mind of its own and it just kind of like makes shit up as it goes along. So I guess you kind of like accept that. But when we find out what the deal is with this little kid, it just makes it all the more confusing.
Yeah,
especially when he has no wounds on him at all, and the main character is like looking like she's walking through war zones.
Yeah, I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you, kid I just met.
So now we get to the part of the movie which is clearly where Disney smelled the lawsuit.
Yeah. They get into like these flying light cycles or whatever, and they're chased by like these skull ships or whatever.
Which the kid immediately recognizes, like, if they touch you, you die. And it's like, again, we know how video games work. We know how enemies within video games work.
But who is piloting that ship?
I think it's just the AI.
Okay, so the AI pilots it, but if the AI touches you, you die?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it's a little hard. It's a little complex.
I'm on board.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
but I mean, like, only one fucking programmer was, like, doing everything on this fucking project. Not everything has, like, a solid explanation.
It's kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around. Let me start from the beginning. So there are doors, right? And these doors...
How do you get in the doors?
You can't open them. But you know what? You know what? You know what you're going to get? You got a key. You're several steps ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Hold on. There's a lot more to explain before we even get to keys, all right?
So they destroy the skull ships, and then she's in, like, Arcade's inner sanctum.
In Arcade's brain or soul or something.
I mean, what do they call it? Like, it's just like the soul room or whatever. I thought I wrote it down.
The
Turns
soul
out
room.
Maybe I just imagined I wrote it down. Yeah. Maybe I just wish I wrote it down. But it's revealed that little kid who's been accompanying Alex since level 5 or whatever, that is Arcade. It was like a brain dead kid whose mind was, like, transported into the fucking source code of this game, and now he lives on as, like, the monster in Arcade. Right?
So many.
I think so.
Did they try not making a video game with the brain of a deceased, brain-dead child?
Yeah.
What was the thought process? It's all like, well, okay, there was like a brain donor, and we had this brain, and we wanted to make the computer smarter. They wanted to make a video game that thought for itself.
Yeah.
So...
But rather than program and make algorithms to do that, they had to get the actual brain of a kid.
But the kid didn't have any mental activity really going on, because they said it's not like he was the child was essentially on life support. It was ethical, right? He was just donating brain cells.
How do you put a brain into video game code? I am asking you because you are the video game developers. So how do you do that?
That kind of gets to a funny point. At some point there, he was working behind the arcade with a laptop, kind of like just coding on the way. And so that goes to show there's no source control. They don't have this backed up anywhere. And that is totally the only version of this software that they have. So I guess it kind of makes sense now why they had to go to the Origin, because they didn't have backups anywhere.
Going back to the Origin gives me the impression that you like peel back like the arcade cabinet and there's literally like
a brain with wires.
A brain with wires in it. Would that have been so out of place in this movie?
No, not at all.
No,
I would have fucking loved that.
It actually would have. It actually would have answered several of the questions I had if there was a brain with wires attached to it.
Even better if it was in a jar.
Yeah,
of,
it was
some
like
blue fluid and it was floating.
It was pulsing like a heart, even though it's a brain.
But like, this is the question. So Arcade wants to win. Arcade wants to fuck over all of these teenagers and have them trapped inside them forever. But then it materializes an AI, I guess, projection of itself when it was human, and it drops it into it, and it creates a scenario where it's like, save this child and I'll give you an extra life. But if the child is Arcade, why would it give her an extra life, which, spoiler alert, is the very thing which she uses to defeat Arcade at the end?
What's your fucking end game here, Arcade?
So, do you remember how he said that brain that was donated was broken?
Mm-hmm. That's why.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just a little kid like who has like a lapse in logic because they don't think about that kind of stuff.
Maybe.
Or he's just like a pouty little kid, a little punk who's not playing fair.
It doesn't make sense.
But it goes out of its way to create its own doom.
Yeah.
Like it would have won if it had not created this extra step in these badly defined levels that go by in a second.
Or spoiler alert, we're not going to talk about the ending yet, but maybe that was its plan all along.
You might have
escape into
because do you remember the ending?
Yeah,
I unfortunately do, because we just watched it. And it seems like we're close enough to that point anyway.
So it makes a turn where Alex wakes up in her bedroom, goes downstairs and finds her mother alive again. And she's like, oh, I had the scariest dream where everybody died, and I was afraid you had died. And the mom said, oh, but I have died, and I'll do it again. And she shoots herself point blank in front of her daughter.
I had the worst nightmare. Oh. God, I dreamt you were dead.
Sweetheart, I am dead.
What?
I said, I am dead. Watch.
That's so fucking messed up. What? And it's the most messed up thing I've seen in a movie in a long time. And it's only beat by moments later where the mom's still alive after shooting herself in the head, and then says, "Now I'm going to shoot you in the head." That is so fucked up to me.
It could have been messed up if this movie had any balls, but I don't know. It didn't. It didn't do anything for me, honestly.
But you forgot to mention at one point. So the mom takes the pistol out, real dramatic, puts it up to her head, pulls the trigger, and then once she's laying on her side with strawberry jam everywhere, and her daughter's like crying on her lap, she just starts stroking her hair. Mm-hmm. That was how they transitioned that scene before she blew her own daughter's.
It's a scary idea, but it doesn't do anything in this movie.
It's the closest this movie gets to actually something being unsettling and creepy to me. Yeah.
The idea is unsettling. Its execution is far from it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see the full script in its native form that it was written in now to see if it did have a cohesive story.
This is a decent idea for a horror movie. And if they had any amount of budget or creativity, it might have made for a decent watch, but it's really hampered by the fact that this movie had a budget of like $20 in a ham sandwich. Like it's just nothing. There's just nothing. They had nothing to work with.
Yeah, in better hands, maybe this could have been a better movie. Maybe. As written, I don't know. I think here's my thing about David Goyer. I think he's a good pitch guy.
Yeah.
He could really sell a good movie. But he's not the strongest writer.
No.
And this is not the strongest director, as evidenced by scenes being framed improperly and cutting
career,
way too late.
Yeah.
And
as evidenced by all of the films he made.
Yeah. So Arcade believes he's won because the dead mom shoots Alex. And he's like, "I've won again, and I will spawn more people and play with my game forever and ever and ever." And Alex says, "Not so fast. I still have that extra life that I picked up somehow."
That you gave me. No. I still have that extra life that you, yourself, the game I am trapped in, gave me. And I would not have unless you gave it to me.
You allowed me to get this extra life.
And he's so surprised by it. Like, this is an AI. It's supposed to be learning. It's supposed to be super intelligent. And he's like, "Oh, no."
Well, he learned. Yeah. He learned not to do that.
I think,
he's all like, "All right, this is why I'm in beta right now."
He didn't anticipate it because no one's ever gotten that far in the game. Everyone keeps dying in the goddamn corridors of doom.
Now, this extra life is realized by, there are extra life tokens in every game, but this one is realized. I was very confusing at first. I didn't know what it was. You eventually get a good look at it. It is a heart, but it's a human heart, and it has like veins attached to it.
It's like a mechanical heart.
Yeah.
Wires and tentacles or whatever.
And so I can buy the fact that an extra life brings Alex back to life so she can fight Arcade again. What I can't buy are two things. One, that when the extra life brings her back to life, her wounds aren't immediately healed because she just wakes up and she's still dripping viscera and blood from like every orifice, and she's all like, "Ha ha!" And it's like, no, that's not how extra lives work. You have full health by this point. But the other thing that I absolutely will not buy is the fact she defeats Arcade by physically throwing
the extra life,
the robot heart, at him, and he explodes in pixels and goes, "No!" And it's like, it's not a weapon!
How did she know that would work?
Also,
who's going to think to throw their extra life as a weapon?
Well, and did you notice her head wound was gone, but all the other wounds were still there?
Her helmet was off. Everyone in the game gets like these fucking biker helmets, and when she gets back to life, she loses her helmet.
But she didn't have a bullet hole.
No,
they had one costume, and then they forgot that this was a scene they needed to film before they did the battle damage to the costume.
Yeah,
and then they just got to that point, and they're like, "It's 5 seconds. No one will know. No one will make a podcast in 25 years pointing this shit out."
So she returns to Dante's Inferno. Everyone is released from the game.
Yep.
They all have a good laugh.
And they're all wearing the same shirt.
Yeah.
The same plaid shirt.
It was the 90s, so there was a lot of flannel going on.
Yeah.
I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm. And Alex goes home, finds that the home console, or the home version, is still like on her doorstep or whatever. And the little kid Arcade managed to escape into the real world. I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It manifested a body that wasn't there at some point.
Yeah. And that's the movie.
That is Arcade.
That's Arcade.
When's the sequel?
Arcade 2.
It's weird based on the fact that like Full Moon Entertainment was all about creating these cheesy monster movie things and then just flooding the market with sequels. Like there are like 8 Evil Bong movies at this point. It's surprising that we never got a sequel to Arcade.
Or at least finish the first one, you know? Like, give us the scenes that we didn't
At least finish the movie. Yeah. Go back now with the money that you have and finish this one movie that you have that clearly is an unfinished film.
I think maybe because they had that legal trouble with Disney, like it just
cut your losses.
Yeah, the producers were like, oh, let's just they were a little gun shy about continuing with the franchise. Because, they don't want to upset, one of the biggest movie companies in the world. Who else can they piss off?
Not like now. Yeah, not like now. Yeah.
Yeah, so anything else you guys want to bring up that happened in this movie?
For the first time, I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I think I've said everything there is to say.
We didn't talk about the green screen.
Oh, but I mean, we need another fucking hour to talk.
It's a bit of a visual medium.
What would you like to bring with them?
Honestly, I just think it was fantastic. The design oversight that they had green wheels on the skateboard that just happened to match the green screen. It definitely made that entire scene.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was made in a different era, but it just looks so cheap when they're in this virtual world. It had all the production value of an old YTV original show.
YTV afternoons. The internet stuff that happened in between shows where it's all coming up next, we got Rugrats, and you can see the green and the pink neon in the back, and they got an eyeball moving around. That's this movie has a YTV aesthetic. This is exactly what this is.
This was like a 3-parter of the old Goosebumps show. That's really just what it felt like.
Yeah, or just one lame episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah. I did think of one thing. So did you notice that when they went to the Vertigotronics building, every room had the same photo on the wall, which was the face without eyes? Mm-hmm. And we also see that on an arcade screen at the very beginning. So I thought at the very least they would come back to that and explain what that was, because they show it multiple times, but that's just a weird thing that they had on the walls that I guess everyone was into.
I mean, that whole game studio, yes, that's what they look like the ugly white walls. There are no gaming posters or toys on people's desks or anything. Well, it's very well realized, this game studio.
We've established that it's one textiles company that is just broached out into...
Has a subsidiary.
Into state-of-the-art VR technology, and they're and they put John Delancey on it, and he does not care.
Yeah. Maybe that's how they got a hold of the brain. Maybe there's some other the parent company has their hands in weird fringe pharmaceutical and medical stuff, and that's how they had access to a brain.
I'm telling you, man, it's just Q. Q is just involved in some way, and he's he's undercover and he doesn't want anyone to know. Mm-hmm. Why else would he disappear midway through the movie?
He's got to go fuck with Picard.
Yeah, he's got to go. Yeah, he's got to go put him in a situation. Mm-hmm. And he's going to learn something by the end of it, and he's going to learn to respect his crew. I don't watch Star Trek The Next Generation. I shouldn't be talking about this.
See, it's funny, because I got a very Umbrella Corp feel from that. Because you remember at one point, there was a coworker who walked past his office, and it sounded like he was working on a different project that was going to end up better than his arcade project.
Shepard, heard the rumors. You're going to axe some people if arcade doesn't penetrate. How's your quote this month?
I ain't business.
Well, then I guess you got nothing to worry about. Do you? See you in the morning?
The whole purpose of that company was to enslave little children or their brains inside your machines. Yeah. It was very bizarre.
Mm-hmm. It is weird how you make the assumption, especially when you hire someone who's so good at doing sinister, like John Delancey, to ostensibly be the face of this evil company. It's weird that the company wasn't part of this. They wasn't part of the evil plan. It was just no, we just decided to get into the VR market. Yeah. And we just happen to have this kid's brain lying around. Yeah. So, I have my chocolate and my peanut butter. I'm just all hey, what if?
Yeah.
Okay, grab those scrolls. I'm writing this down.
But how does this fucking company make money? They're just giving away the home version of the fucking console.
And back then, let's talk about 1991. What do you think a state-of-the-art VR system plus all the hardware capable of running it would have gone for back then? Oh. What was it, 93 or 95 when we had the Virtual Boy?
That's what I was going to say. That's what virtual reality looked like in the early 90s. It looked the red and black, and it gave
more evil than arcade looked.
And it gave you migraines after playing it for 10 minutes. Yeah.
But it didn't try to kill you.
That's true.
So that was kind of nice.
It didn't try to kill you. It would kill you if you played it for too long, but it didn't try to kill you.
I mean, those things were heavy. That's why I was on a fucking stand.
Yeah. Fun fact, if you play Waterworld on the Virtual Boy for more than half an hour, it will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was in, I think IGN did a thing on that. Jameson, you were going to ask me a question.
Oh, would you, either of you recommend watching Arcade to someone else?
Curtis?
Well, so this answer is going to depend on a couple things. Do you have alcohol or some kind of drugs that could help you get through it? Because it's not a coherent story.
Got some of that alien weed.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a complete story from start to finish, so I personally would say this is a pass.
Yeah. If you give yourself some brain damage before you watch the movie, you might enjoy it a little bit more.
It might make more sense.
Yeah.
But then you might also find that you've been donated to a video game company and now you're an arcade system.
That's what they want. That was their evil plan all along.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is lame. It's a really fun idea, but the execution is no good.
Yeah.
And it's so weird watching something with such like a high concept idea where it's all like, well, the majority of this should take place inside the video game. Maybe 20 minutes of this movie is inside the video game. They keep making excuses not to do the thing that they've set up to do.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget, 15 minutes of that 20 minutes inside the game was the same feedback loop of the corridor on repeat.
That's
it just
right.
kept showing the same thing.
I mean, like, the special effects are just, like, laughably bad. I would only recommend this movie to people who work in the games industry, just so they could laugh at how fucking absurd and how much they got it wrong.
Well, there aren't too many movies that take place in the video games industry. This is on a very short list of movies that are about your specific profession.
Yeah.
So,
and the reason for that, I think, is that, like, you know, the games industry, like, there's a lot of money that gets thrown around in it. There's a lot of big egos in it. Like, it's a place of business. It's not...
It's not that sexy.
It's not that sexy. Yeah. That's all I really got to say on it. But like, fuck, can you imagine like the post-mortem of this project, of the fucking arcade project? Like, what went right in the project? What went wrong? Well, we got the brain of this kid. We made like the first level really fucking impossible.
Dude, I don't think
we rushed it to homes. We didn't do any testing for it.
What did go right with arcade? Like, okay,
so apparently it's
all of these kids got sucked into the world, and there was Comatose boy's brain attached to it, and it reads your mind and it calls the players a bitch. What are those are the negatives? What are the positives of arcade?
Well, they made 50 cents. There was 2 quarters dropped into it.
It turned a profit.
I think whatever like the programmer was trying to do, like getting the human brainwaves matched with the source code to make this fully immersive world where it completely scans your body into a game, that worked out. That's completely to his ambition.
Yeah.
So that's a success.
We got some we got some positives, we got some negatives. We got a few more negatives than we got positives, but overall, you know, like a good jumping off
point. It's a fucking miracle of science and technology to that respect. I just don't think he ever anticipated to actually murder people.
There's just like one guy left in like his like lab coat, and he just goes over to like the dry erase board, and he just goes like, "Less evil?"
Mark, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I gotta say on that.
That was Arcade, directed by Albert Pyung, written by David S. Goyer. Clearly, started
not his
off
finest
with,
work.
Not his finest work. No, not whatsoever. You know what? I would still watch this movie over Blade Trinity. Yeah, still way more entertaining than that movie.
Shots fired.
Well, Curtis, thank you for coming out all the way to be on the show. Thanks for letting me time.
My pleasure, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks. Maybe we'll do this again someday.
Oh, I'd love to,
Yeah. Do you have anything that you would like to plug, or barring that, have you watched anything recently that you recommend other people check out?
You know what? I can't say I've been watching a whole lot right now, and there's not a whole lot that I'd want to plug. I just, go watch Arcade. We got to fund a sequel. I want to see how it's supposed to turn out.
We're going to get the Kickstarter sequel to Arcade started right
with
now.
With Neil Breen.
Absolutely, yeah. The only man.
Not directing it, just as a cameo.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Neil Breen as the voice of Arcade.
Welcome to my game. I'm disappointed in these humans. That's like literal line from his fucking movies. And it fits well, oddly enough.
Yeah, because isn't he supposed to be like an alien or something?
He's supposed to be like a Christ figure / alien / from the future / very disappointed in humanity.
Well, what Neil Breen film would you recommend people check out, Jameson?
Fateful Findings, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
I am here ... now.
Yeah,
It's called I Am Here
Then like
Now.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I ever watch a Neil Breen movie, I think I'll
you
watch
should.
that.
I think you should check them out. They're so bad.
Be prepared.
All right.
Do you have anything that you want to plug?
What do I want to plug? I mean, yes, I'm still doing Tales from the Lost Galaxy. You can find all that information on Alchemy Theater's Facebook page. You can find out where to stream that over Twitch. What have I watched recently? This is going to be a very light plug because I can totally see people being pissed off by this movie. But I do recommend people watch Capone.
Okay.
Have you seen that yet?
No.
I don't know necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily. It's not a great movie, but Tom Hardy, my God. I wouldn't call that like the best acting of the year. It's certainly the most acting of the year. Like
Okay.
Very rarely do you get to see like a big Hollywood marquee star go out of his way to be that fucking disgusting. Like he's just leaking from every orifice you can imagine.
Is that a positive or?
Well, okay, because the movie is like the last year of Al Capone's life, and he's losing his mind in his house. And like, if you look, this is a very tenuous recommendation. But if you have ever wanted to see a movie where Tom Hardy wears a bathrobe and a diaper and fires a solid gold machine gun while he has a drool-soaked carrot hanging out of his mouth, Capone's got you covered in spades. It is one of the most insane performances I've ever seen any actor ever give.
Sounds great.
It is fantastic. Like if you think Tom Hardy's silly voices couldn't get possibly any wackier, you gotta check Capone out.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, that wraps up another spooky episode. Join us next time for more Halloween haunts.
Yeah. Thanks again to Podstream Studios for having us.
Yes, thank you to Joel Flynn and Luke Schuss over at Podstream Studios for having us over here. Check us out on Instagram at the F Is This Podcast. And finally, Jameson, we gotta talk about this. Okay, so I feel like this bit has run its course. I do.
No, you don't.
No, I do. I feel like this bit, it's very funny. So we always end this bit where I say a catchphrase and Jameson hates it, and it's funny. It's funny how you interrupt me or like leave the room and everything like that. It's good. I just feel like we can't. There's no traction left in it anymore.
I've been saying that since the second episode we started doing.
So here's
this.
the deal. Here's the deal. I'm going to give you a choice. Here's the choice. Here's the choice that I am laying bare for you right now. You have two options. One, we keep the catchphrase exactly the way it is, and we just like agree that is the official catchphrase of the podcast, and you don't try and like interrupt or sabotage it. Or you can choose what's in the box. Yes, I have. This is a bit that I thought of on the way here. I have an actual oatmeal box, and inside this box is a new catchphrase. And if you choose the box, I will retire You Stay Frosty Deputy Dogs forever, and it will not come back. But the caveat, you have to read the catchphrase that's in this box out loud right now. What do you choose?
Let's go with the box.
Let's go with the box.
He's going. All this trouble.
What's in the box?
Good
we'll go
man.
through the box. But
This is going to say
you have
Stay
to.
Frosty
You have
Deputy
to.
Dogs.
You have to agree right now on your honor as a co-host that you will read what is in this box no matter what.
Sure.
Okay, great. You Stay Frosty Deputy Dogs is now retired. It will not be the catchphrase how we end this at all. Here's our new catchphrase.
You Stay Toasty Detective Frogs.
That's right.
I'll take it. Why not?
Great. Cool.
See how fast he grabbed that box?
He was ready. He was ready for that to
I've
be
been putting
over
up
with.
with you.
I'm only doing it to annoy you. Oh my god.